Gap and who he's talking to now. Aldrin?
Yes, we can continue with this rolling coverage of this decision that has now been confirmed by the Secretary General of the party, Ace Magashule. It must have been a difficult time for him, standing at this podium, looking at this media room packed to capacity with international media houses, and knowing very well, as he said in the interview with me as well, that he has been a staunch President Jacob Zuma supporter, to be the one that relays the information to some ANC members who may not have received a communique that states that this decision has now been taken by the party to recall its former leader, President Jacob Zuma. And that is the situation right now. But one can only imagine what was going through his mind, having to stand here with the glare of the media houses and the world watching. And let me just quickly bring in political analyst Edward Mitole in here. He's joining us from the University of Pretoria. Political analyst. Let's first start with the media houses, packed to capacity, many questions that people wanted to ask. But what does this signify, considering the media interest in the story?
The media frenzy signifies the vested interest that a lot of people around the world have on South Africa. You must remember that the ANC is the oldest liberation movement on the continent. It has a rich history of struggle and emancipation. It has learned a lot from across Africa, from other liberation movements, and it is still a crowd puller in South Africa in terms of the support from the grassroots. So this media frenzy signifies a lot of interest. You must understand that South Africa is one country on the continent which attracts a lot of foreign direct investment. And a lot of the media houses that were represented here come from various interest groups and various investors in the country. So it only tells the nation that the ANC remains the crowd puller in terms of electoral mileage and electoral advantage, and it was also the movement that represents the black masses of South Africa. So this day marks a turning point in the history of the ANC itself as a movement. It is a precedent that has been set, and it is a precedent that will always come back to haunt the liberation movement. Recalling a president, a sitting president, is a very big decision that the ANC has made. Coming from the precedent that was set in September 2008, when President Mbeki was recalled, I predicted then that this precedent of recalling a sitting president by the deploying party will always come back to haunt the ANC. We see today that the ANC leadership has also made a similar decision after deliberations, after a long time of discussions within the movement, and they have decided to recall the president.
I think I probably have a different view on this. I don't actually think that it's a turning point for the ANC. It's probably the ANC that has come 360. They're back at where they were back in 2008. It's exactly the same thing. And if anything, if history is anything to go by, and being said today as well again, that Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of the ANC currently, must expect the same fate if things continue as they are.
I agree with you. But then again, I'll tell you a story. Just 2 days ago, two of my former students at the University of Pretoria, as I was exiting Menlyn Mall, they approached me and said, "Sir, we have been crying for a long time as a black nation. Who betrayed the black revolution?" So with tears in my eyes, I responded to them. I said, a lot of people, cultural nationalists, the black bourgeoisie and petty bourgeoisie, revisionists and liberals, fair weather friends and comrades, at every bend in the road, opportunists will jump out. Nothing moves forward in a straight line. There are twists and turns, ebbs and flows, and if people expect things to be otherwise, they become demoralized. But history and revolution advances in waves. This is why we must study dialectical materialism and avoiding following blindly, mouthing rhetoric and slogans. Because leaders and movements parties and movements turn sour. Leaders die or sell out. And if we do not have a correct political ideological line, we will get lost and not be able to find our bearings. But revolution is the main trend in history. And these setbacks are only temporary. That is, I agree with you, that ANC will always find itself because it is a liberation movement. It might be a governing party now, but it remains a liberation movement. We must go back to the 54th conference of the ANC and the policies that were ratified. Remember, radical economic transformation always resonates with the revolutionary struggle of this country. The expropriation of land without compensation goes back to the revolutionary struggle of this country. Free higher education resonates with the revolution of this country. So you must understand that the revolution will continue. The ANC might face obstacles, but in time, it will find itself.
Do we ever get to what I think it's a former ANC president who said, will we ever get to Jerusalem? Or will we ever get to that point where we say that the ANC has led the country to a point where the country is fulfilled and the country has advanced to such a point where we don't have to deal with issues of this nature, where when the party goes to its elective conference, it can understand that you can have a Cyril Ramaphosa continue and let him finish his term, and the next person would come in, and the next person will be taking over. And the opposition parties also, on the other hand, also standing in line, waiting for their chance to access to state power.
Moses, who is Cyril Ramaphosa, is approaching the river Jordan. We have not yet crossed the river yet. We are on our journey to Jerusalem. But Pharaoh and his soldiers are still pursuing us. We must learn from our mistakes. The ANC has made mistakes in the past, and it is time that it corrects those mistakes now. You must understand that the ANC has neglected the youth of this country in terms of political education. That is one priority that the ANC needs to work on. All the challenges we are facing now go back, it boils down to lack of political education. The divisions that are there in the ANC, especially in the ranks and file of the ANC and in the leadership itself, go back to lack of political education and lack of political ideology. So if the ANC can work on political education, invest massively on political education and ideology, the movement will bounce back.
President Jacob Zuma, for instance, prides himself in, having not went to formal schooling, but having learned within this revolutionary house, or this revolution being called, the organization being called the ANC, about what it is that this country needs. And I wonder, though, that now that this party has gone to President Jacob Zuma and said that now we've taken a decision as the NEC that you must be recalled, and they've given him up until tomorrow to respond, whether he will heed that call and make the announcement, which some, have been saying on Twitter, quite mischievously so, that, quote, unquote, fellow South Africans.
The President of the Republic, President Jacob Zuma, still has a right of reply. He still has the right of reply. He has to be given time to respond to the ANC ultimatum. Remember, he's still the president of this country. He hasn't been found guilty by any court of law. This is a decision that the House has made. It's the leadership of the ANC talking to the leadership of the ANC and coming to an amicable, solution to pave way so that to try to resolve some of the issues that are there. Remember that we are not saying that Zuma has refused to implement the policies of the ANC, because that would have been one of the most justifiable reasons to recall him. He has not refused to implement the decisions of the ANC, and he has not been found guilty by any court of law. The ANC has accepted collective responsibility for some of the accusations around corruption, collective responsibility. So it does not mean that Zuma is the sum total of all the problems that are begrudging the ANC at the moment.